A small town, a guy who wants to see the world, and an angel who's trying to earn his wings turned out to be the perfect recipe for a holiday movie that has been delighting audiences for decades. Hi, I'm Michelle Hickey, the director of Film and Paper Club. In this video, I'm joined by my creative partner, Steve King, for a discussion about this timeless holiday classic. Are the best scenes the ones that make us shake with emotion? Is It's a Wonderful Life appropriately deemed a holiday movie? Is a movie made in 1946 still relevant for our modern audience? Stay tuned as we answer all of these questions and more.
First time I saw it, I was probably preteen. So it was definitely around either right after Thanksgiving or right before, right in that first week of December. I can remember that's when it would typically like air for the first time, either like Thanksgiving night or the Saturday of Thanksgiving weekend. And I can remember it being kind of like a thing, like we're going to sit down as a family, we were going to watch this. And but being able to grow up with this film with my family, we always had staples around the holiday season for movies, and usually it was just probably three. We watched It's a Wonderful Life every year. We watched White Christmas every year, and we watched March of the Wooden Soldiers every year, which was one of my dad's favorites. So I can just, it's special because I remember sitting around with my family and watching it as a kid, and kind of growing up with it from there.
I really miss that notion of things being on TV at certain times, often only at certain times of the year, obviously Christmas movies, but Wizard of Oz is another that was always on, I think, Thanksgiving weekend. And there's something so comforting about knowing that lots of different people in the country are all watching the same thing at the same time and then doing it year after year.
Yeah, to me, it's a little bit of a culture change, and it's not because you're not used to being able to stream something whenever you want it, but because that is something that was so untouched. Like that was, it's the first Saturday in December and it's on at 8 o'clock, and it used to run till like 11 o'clock. So even as like a younger kid, like that was kind of staying up late and all that stuff. So just the fact that it's now like available at any time when you want to watch it, it seems a little like, oh, I shouldn't be doing that. That's not right. Like I should be watching it the way I was used to watching it as a kid. And that's actually leading up to this recording, watching it this year. That's how I watched it. I was aware that it was on the night before we were recording. I'm like, okay, good. Like I'm going to watch it like in real time with commercials. I don't know. It's one of those ones that's probably one of the few movies that I would say like, nope, I'm not going to watch it on a streaming platform. I'm going to watch it the way I remember watching it as a kid. I have two. If I can go off the board,
of course.
I'll take the obvious one. Okay, good. I take the obvious one first, which is the ending scene. I think the editing of that scene, of that entire part of the movie, is so brilliant because of the rhythm of it. Like it's when they're all coming up and giving him money because of what he had done years past with saving people's families and towns, and the rhythm of the scene from one person after another, it's just like body blow after body blow, or punch after emotional punch of just, oh my God, this person, oh I remember that person, oh I remember this, people kind of coming back from earlier in the movie. Plus, the music choice, the interaction between him and Clarence, like it's just a very, I'll well up and like start like shaking, but like you don't want to let anyone else in the room know that you're crying. But like that's kind of that every year at that point in time, there's a tremble moment of me in the corner because I'm just trying to hold it together.
You literally just described me about like 30 minutes ago, which is when I finished up like when his brother says that line, like the richest man in the world or richest man in town. I was just like, and I'm like sitting down there by myself and I'm still like, oh my God, you have to hold it together right now. Like it felt like the options were hold it together or just completely lose it, because it's so beautiful. And at that point when his brother comes in, it's like you said, it's like punch after punch, and he's kind of like the final blow. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So beautiful, though.
It's just very well done. And it's almost like that was Capper's sort of like We're going to do one after the other after the other. We're going to make people feel this just the way that he's feeling it in the moment. And it's just, and I do. And every time I know it's coming, and every time it hits me right in the right in the feel. So the other one I think is kind of more comedic, which I think the movie really needs, because it kind of starts going from this very lighthearted thing to a very dark. The lighting gets dark, the sets, this, where they are in certain parts of the sets are getting dark, and you're introduced to Clarence early on, obviously from a voice perspective. But when he reappears by diving in to save George from ultimately jumping in, and you kind of like are introduced to the person Clarence. I love the scene where they kind of go into the little hut, after he's rescued and they get him in, and they're trying to get him warm, and there's certain lines and like the way things are delivered in that scene, interactions, looks, glances, that kind of like remind you that like, okay, George is in there still, like he might be agitated, and like, but clearly it's not in like a irreversible way. Like, that there's going to be a corner around it at some point. So I felt like the timing of that scene too was just so necessary.
That scene is great. And you're right. It is timed perfectly. Like we need that. We need to, it's like it gets really bad and then we need to take a breath before it gets even worse. But it's almost like we know it's about to get worse. So that was very well timed. Obviously, I love the scene at the end, but there was another scene that really stood out to me this time around. And I was reading a little bit about Frank Capra because I'm not super familiar with his work, but I watched one of his other films, You Can't Take It With You. And I also watched Mr. Smith Goes to Washington earlier this year for the first time. So something that I started to notice in his movies is there's a lot of chaos in it. There's a lot of characters and a lot of chaos. And there's a scene in It's a Wonderful Life that is the opposite of that. It's very quiet. And I always tend to like those types of scenes in movies. I think they're kind of little hidden gems about like, if you listen closely enough and you're really paying attention, the whole heart of the movie kind of lies in that scene. And I think that scene in this movie is where George is having dinner with his dad, and in a couple scenes after that, his dad passes away. So it's kind of like his final dinner with his dad, but he doesn't know that that's going to be the case. And George kind of recaps his life goals, which is to get out of the town and see the world and do really big, important things. And his dad says, you know what, like, that's great. He's not discouraging him, but he says, I kind of think that what I do in my work is kind of important, in a different way. And I think he's kind of like planting that seed, maybe not meaning to. Maybe George doesn't, remember it later on, or it doesn't completely register, but I know it's like it's in him that he has to remember that moment because it was the last time that he and his dad spent together. And it ends so beautifully with him just kind of saying like, Dad, I don't know if, this may sound hard to believe, but like,
Pop, you want a shock? I think you're a great guy.
he basically just says like, you're a great guy, which,
Yeah.
between like a dad and a son, sometimes that's all you're going to get, but that's all you need.
Yeah.
I thought it was like beautifully executed, super simple, and, just drove home what I thought was kind of the point of the movie. There are a lot of debates on the internet in general, but a lot of debates about what makes something a Christmas movie. I mean, the one we hear about a lot is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Does it count? And it dawned on me as I was watching this that It's a Wonderful Life, I have always thought of, even before I saw it, is a Christmas movie. And it is. It's such a big part of the ending. But I kind of have the opposite opinion about this, in that this should really be a year-round movie. What are your thoughts on this?
I disagree. Um, I don't feel like it's not something that I feel like I could sit down and watch in the middle of the year. Where the rhythm picks up with it, when he's running through the town, like it's Christmas and he's yelling it out, and it's the season of giving. People are giving to him. I agree with you that those things should be done all year round, but I think in in film, they're often not. You don't see that type of message, at a summer blockbuster type movie. I found it interesting that that's something that I remember reading that Capra also sort of kind of ran from, because he wasn't thrilled about the idea of it kind of being tied to a Christmas period. But PBS started running this during the holidays, started showing this on their channel during the holidays in the 70s, and it was designed to be a counter to some of the main networks' big expensive productions of their holiday specials, the Dean Martin holiday special, the Frank Sinatra, the Bing Crosby, these big theatrical, very expensive. And in order to get people to maybe watch this movie, they did it very much on the cheap. And it kind of started to snowball from there, and people kind of came back to it in the 70s and 80s, and really probably over the course of the last 40 years or so, this became associated with the holiday season. So I found that interesting, that it was kind of like a shot in the dark in many ways, and it kind of worked, because you do see still, I'm sure there's a lot of big budget things on the main networks but I don't think a lot of people watch that anymore, so it feels like this kind of was like the right play.
It was, but I feel like you did kind of make my argument that I don't think that Capra set out to make a Christmas movie, and I think at the
Right.
time that he made this, movies were so new that wasn't even really like a thing. There wasn't
Right.
like a market for holiday movies. I was also thinking about the movie poster. I mean, like you said, PBS or, whatever other networks decided to show this during Christmas time, like very much hammered home that like this is a Christmas movie. This is what you do with your family over the holidays. But when you look at the original poster, like the old one, there's not like a Christmas tree on it. It doesn't look Christmassy at all. So
That's your bench.
yeah, I feel like that's a really good piece of evidence towards my argument. I mean, and also the fact that I know you said like he's running through the streets at the end, but that's there's 10 minutes left of the movie at that point. For 75% of this movie, it is not Christmas. It's quite lovely outside. There's no snow
There's a Christmas tree at the end, though.
at the end.
How does that change your equation for Christmas movies, if it does at all?
I do think it's a Christmas movie, but I don't think it's an only Christmas movie. I think that this movie could be, if marketed differently, enjoyed all year long. I'm going to remind you of this on Easter. I'm going to say, you know what would be really cool to watch tonight?
Passion of the Christ. I think probably more so today than, I don't want to say ever before, because we've had a lot of difficult times where people have felt the strain of life and the burdens of life. But I think it's very poignant for the period that we're in right now. Parents, working from home and raising kids and trying to make ends meet and keep their head on straight and get dinner on the table, and people losing jobs and trying to figure out how to make ends meet, and for people who have lost loved ones and trying to figure out how to put pieces back together. I think the message in all of this is about trust and perseverance and leaning on the people around you. And I think sometimes, our culture feels like this, put your head down and go to work and figure it out. And, I think that sort of plagues us as a society a little bit too, because it's, we don't often stop enough. We feel like it's a weakness to ask for help. We feel like it's a weakness to lean on other people. And I don't know, we're concerned about how we're going to be seen. And I think this movie does a really good job of reminding us that we all need people, we all need friends, we all need support. And even when you're at your lowest of lows, there are still people there who care about you a great deal. And I find it more appropriate for this period of time that we're in, that I probably have, in all the years that I watched it, prior to March of 2020.
I agree. I feel like this should be mandatory viewing. I mean, there's a reason that we're shaking at the ends of it. It's because, okay, that's hitting something. And I think that most people would kind of have the same reaction to it. And it makes me wonder, like, if everyone were reminded of this message at least once a year, maybe twice, if you're willing to watch it in a different season, world might be a little bit of a better place. Thanks so much for joining us for this discussion. If you have thoughts and insights to share about It's a Wonderful Life, we would love to keep the conversation going inside of our Film and Paper Club members area. Share your voice, your favorite snacks, and meet other smart, creative people who love chatting about movies, television, and books. We hope you can join us for one of our upcoming virtual movie club events or book club meetings. Please visit members.filmandpaperclub.com for all of your membership options. For more content and discussions from me and Steve, check out our long-running audio show called A Podcast for Creatives. We also have a show on YouTube called Commercial Breakdown, where we chat about our favorite commercials from the 1990s. Before you go, if you enjoyed this video, please let us know by giving it a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button to ensure you won't miss out on any of our upcoming releases. This concludes our holiday film series. Wishing you and yours a very Merry Christmas and a happy and healthy New Year.